Good day. Welcome to another session with Guru Wonder. I'm your host, Gurvinder Singh. If one witnesses the shenanigans of the global powers, especially the collective West, they live in a state of what one would call as lèse-majesté. Uh, Lèse-majesté is a French term, and it means literally means translated means to do wrong to majesty, and it is considered as an offense to the reigning sovereign or against a state. Now, it is a thousand-year-old concept, and it's not only applicable to France and all of Europe, but it has been in every single country. You cannot cause offense to the sovereign. And this reminds me that the way the European, but has become that it is, today we don't have that many monarchies or sovereigns as a in who are heading the government, but we can even witness lèse-majesté even in democracies where many elected officials unleash the harshest of reaction should they be questioned or their ideas be questioned, let alone criticized. Now, this was the prevailing situation even is today, even now in Europe. So Europe would dictate, and they would expect everybody just to simply fall in line. They could behave in any manner they chose. No one in the world could say nor behave in any manner that might offend Europe and European leaders. It's a little bit of history. Over a 400-year period, Europe moved from the backwaters, the Dark Ages, from about 1500 to 1920, and through sheer ruthlessness, deceit, cunning, and industry had colonized large parts of the world, controlling at its peak 84% of the world to become rulers of the world. And the tragedy is that after two world wars, and that their colonies and they themselves have been reduced to 18% of the world, they still consider themselves as the rulers of the entire world, except for allies like Japan and Australia, Canada, etc. Rulers generally consider themselves above the principles, laws, and practices that they themselves espouse for others to follow. They do pretty much what they want, and their own populace and others across the world must meekly submit. But after World War II, the center of power shifted, and America became the new emperor, and Europe became kingdoms that could survive only by owing fealty to the USA. They became like empires of the past, with the nobility in charge of but not independent control of their own territory. All this was disguised as republics, democracies, and other fictions. This empire was challenged by another set of ideologies called communism, led by the Soviet Union. Because of the USSR's lack of economic incentives, their economies fell back, and eventually the Soviet Union collapsed, and with it much of global communism. Meanwhile, a new hybrid form of communism emerged in China and Vietnam, which combined the two systems, political communism married to economic capitalism. So with this background, let's go back to Europe. Backed by the USA, Europeans consider themselves at the center of the known universe, with all roads, ideas, wealth, and power leading to Europe. This is how it was, and has been. With the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, this idea of majesty and undisputed rulers of the world was further reinforced. The racist, sexist, xenophobic, and capitalistic traits that justified and sustained colonialism have never really gone away. They have just been kept out of sight, only to emerge and rear its toxic head from time to time, as can be witnessed mostly with Hinduphobia, Indophobia, Islamophobia, Sinophobia, and Russophobia. If you look at it, individually, European countries are not, individually they are not that strong. So they united to form the European Union for all matters regarding defense, or if you like, you can call it offense, being undertaken by another joint venture called NATO, which is led by America. Europeans dictated everything. They bullied and pushed their way around the world and did pretty much what they wanted. But that is the problem with power. It goes to the head and then reason leaves the mind, while justice and truth leave the soul. So over the past 2 decades, America and Europe discovered to their horror that 2 old civilizations, China and Russia, have grown uncomfortably big, smart, and strong. And like adolescents, which did not take so kindly to being dictated to or being patronized, are asserting themselves. And India is the next child that is coming into its own. Well, Europe thought it's a good time to finish off these 2 upstarts and challenge us once for all and show the rest of the world the price that they will have to pay for Lèse-majesté. So, using Ukraine as a pawn, the attack on Russia is actually 3-pronged. The first is economic. It's an economic war by way of economic and financial sanctions, now numbering 6,400 and increasing by the day. And the attempt is to choke and collapse the Russian economy. Secondly, proxy military war, using Ukraine and other bit players like Lithuania, Poland, etc. to wear out and bankrupt Russia. Just like they were able to do in Afghanistan in the about 4 decades ago. The third is political war, an attempt to isolate Russia geopolitically among the world community. The West was so confident on the expected success of financial and trade sanctions, they never much focused on the other 2 prongs. Imagine Europe will now starve itself of food and energy, has criminally expropriated Russian assets, seizing them at will and disposing them off to leaders' cronies. All this disregarding due process of law on which genuine democracies stand. Against all laws and norms, seize sovereign foreign reserves, indulge in piracy, etc., etc. They insist on purchasing from Russia in euros, and when the euros are deposited with the Europeans will promptly seize them. And they expect that Russia would bow down and accept this insane sense of entitlement by Europe. You know, Lèse-majesté has no place in the modern world. But Europe knows no other way than to consider itself rulers and dictators of the world. And the arrogance and hate that excessive Lèse-majesté generates always leads to the downfall of every regime that practices it. How then can Europe escape the same fate? I thank you for joining me. today. And if you like the video, please do not forget to like and share and subscribe to this channel. And I hope to see you again on my channel soon. Good day.